shout out to our funding partner, Alabama Humanities Alliance. We could not have done this event without a grant from that organization. And Graydon Rust, we have been working with him for months now on this event and the interpretive banners that you see on the side. And we just want to thank Alabama Humanities Alliance for sending this event. I'm about to introduce someone to you, but I'm going to tell some funny stories about her real fast. We're going to, the time period is just kind of fluid today, so this is real casual. We're going to kind of move fluidly through our agenda. And the authors have already told me, please don't make me speak for long. So I'm going to grant them their request, and we're going to move into Sharon Freeman's talk in just a second. But I want to say that preservation efforts like this don't happen without communities of people. And Annette talked about the caving community, who's been very helpful. She's talked about the biologists who have been working, volunteers for the grounds, and for just being here to physically secure this area and how important they are to the mission of the cave. But I want to talk for a second about the archaeological community because they are also huge supporters. And it's not even just the archaeologists who have worked here physically. It's a community of archaeologists who work together to build a scholarly body of information. And they work together and they share and they all know each other. And that's how I got involved with all of this. Was I started working at the Office of Archaeological Research in Moundville, Alabama. And I want to point out Matt Gage, the director of OAR, is here in the audience. Thank you, Matt, for coming. Stacy Hawthorne is the Alabama Historic Commission state archaeologist. She's here present in the audience. Thank you, Stacy. Scott Shaw is a cave archaeologist, and we would like to thank Scott for coming out from school today. Who else in the archaeology community? I know Annette has mentioned a few people. Who else is back here? Amanda? Thank you, Amanda McBride. I see you now. From the Alabama Historical Commission. So they really contribute to the historical understanding, and they give us these stories scholarly significance and back these up. And so we really appreciate that community for being involved in this, because this story isn't over. The archaeology is just kind of starting here, and so we want to thank that community. I met the next speaker at the Office of Archaeological Research. Sharon Ashcraft Freeman has 25 years experience of archaeological laboratory analysis and archaeological fieldwork. She was employed at the University of Alabama Office of Archaeological Research for 10 years, working on various archaeological projects throughout the southeastern U.S. Sharon has a bachelor's in anthropology from the University of Alabama and a master's in earth sciences with a concentration in archaeology and a certificate in museum studies from the University of Memphis. As a founding board member of the Alabama Chapter Trail of Tears Association and a board member of the Manitou Cave of Alabama, Sharon is interested in all aspects of Indian nations and their forced removal from the Southeast, specifically identifying, documenting, and preserving sites associated with the Cherokee Nation. So I introduce Sharon Freeman.
Thank you, Shannon. I don't think I've ever given a talk before with wet hair and rain boots. But I love it. Matt knows that's right up my alley. Welcome, everyone. It is so wonderful to see so many friends here. Larry Smith, Larry Benefield, Camille, Blake, Matt, Scott. Scott has quite a few tales he could tell for caving. There's several more. Stacy Hawthorne. But it's really nice to see you, and welcome to everyone. I first saw Dr. Shimmick's name in relation to Dust Cave in Florence, Alabama, when I started working on that project. I love the South and Southeastern archaeology. And I'm going to read from a paper because I lose my way say frequently. I love Southeastern archaeology. However, North Alabama has a special hold on my interest and my soul. Even though I've never lived in North Alabama, I've always felt at home here. And in Tennessee, the mountains of North Carolina, and strangely enough in Cloudcroft, on a mountain just east of Alamogordo, New Mexico, near the Mescalero Reservation. As an 11 or 12-year-old, I remember coming here with my grandparents and siblings and entering the cave when it was a tourist attraction in the late 1960s and 1970s, early 1970s. I remember the entrance chamber, but not much more is clear in my mind as we toured many caves in the southeast during this time period. I'm currently searching through old photos and film that my grandfather took everywhere that we went. I'm hoping that there's something that he recorded here. Many of you around my age may in fact have something in your photo albums that relate to this site. Wherever you sit or stand on this property, or in this city for that matter, you're on hallowed ground. You may be sitting exactly where a stickball game took place, or where a house structure was located, or a birth took place, or any number of daily activities that Cherokee people took part in. Fort Payne, Alabama, and the surrounding area has an abundance of natural resources and was able to sustain populations for at least 12,000 years or greater. Of course, we know artifacts in the area can be dated to white colonizers that swiftly moved into Cherokee Nation land. The Civil War era, industrial time period, boom days of course is celebrated this weekend, and up to modern times. However, today, I'm not talking about the earliest times or the latter times. Today, I'm mainly focused on early 1800s to 1840s. Even though DeKalb County does not have a major river system, numerous creeks and streams lie within true drainage area systems, the Tennessee River and the Coosa River. This area is located in the Appalachian Highlands, Cumberland Plateau physiographic section. And Matt, you know that's straight out of a report. Prior to being known as Fort Payne, the area was known as Willstown and lies between two ridges. Willstown offered a land route direct to Chattanooga to Ross's Landing and was significant to the Cherokee Nation. Willstown hosted council meetings of the Cherokee lower towns. Treaty meetings were conducted here as well. Willstown is important on several levels, and most interestingly, you all know that Sequoyah lived in Willstown during the time he was creating the Cherokee Syllabary. Cherokee territory was once massive. It included all of what is now Kentucky, portions of West Virginia, North and South Carolina, northern Georgia, northern Alabama, and over half of Tennessee. Numerous treaties, first with the British and then with the United States, were struck to grab as much land as possible. And these treaties were unanimously broken in some way. President Andrew Jackson proved to be treacherous for the First Nations with the passage of the Indian Removal Act in 1830. Then the Treaty of New Echota was struck in 1835 and was heavily contested by elected officials of the Cherokee Nation. The treaty included $5 million paid to the Cherokee for all remaining land east of the Mississippi. Signatories of the Treaty of New Echota were not elected officials of the Cherokee Nation. Officials of the Cherokee Nation and most Cherokee citizens were against the treaty and tried in vain to revoke it. Years after forced removal of First American nations, the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole from the southeast, the Trail of Tears became known as an apt description of Cherokee removal. Short-sighted, cruel, and greedy men saw in the Cherokee Nation such things as resource management, ferries, police, newspapers due to Sequoyah Syllabary, trade, farming, forest husbandry, and a measured way of combining Cherokee culture and acculturation to white colonizers. However, Cherokee culture was often hidden from whites due to increasing hostilities. Mission schools were adamant about erasing all evidence of Cherokee culture, especially the Cherokee language and female leadership through matrilineal societies. Cherokee Nation was matrilineal, meaning that it went through the female. In order to remove over 16,000 people over 800 miles, Jackson ordered the construction of forts, camps, supply depots all over the Southeast, totaling over 30. Forts were not constructed to contain people. There was just too many Cherokee, but to protect supplies and soldiers. Camps outside of the forts were in wide swaths of land with sentries that walked the perimeter guarding the Cherokee people. Most forts were constructed of chestnut wood and were 15 to 20 miles apart from one another to facilitate the movement of supplies and people. I was first introduced to the quartermaster notes by Mike Wren, and they have proven to be an incredible resource. Many times a fort or camp is mentioned only in the quartermaster's notes and nowhere else, so we have relied heavily on them. All of the following places associated with removal are mentioned in some detail in the quartermaster notes by listing number of soldiers, some of them by name, Cherokee people, translators, physicians, hospital supplies, food stores, horses, wagons, and officers. Admittedly, quartermaster information is not about the personal lives of Cherokee people. However, some information can be gleaned from it, and it can lead researchers to other resources. By the time Cherokee removal took place, Cherokee people and whites used many similar household wares and farming equipment, making it difficult for archaeologists to decipher what is specifically Cherokee and what is white colonizer artifacts. Unless there is a personal cultural material present in the archaeological assemblage that's not been degraded, it's very hard, very difficult. In northwest Alabama, the TC&D Railroad from Decatur to Tuscumbia, there's Waterloo, Tuscumbia Landing, all had a role in removal. In north central and northeast Alabama, Camp Morrow, Bellefonte, Camp Fort Lovell, Camp Watts, and Fort Turkeytown served as overnight camps or supply depots, and their exact locations generalized. We're not sure. Gunner's Landing in Gunnersville, Alabama, was utilized as a stopover for flatboats filled with Cherokee people, having come from Ross's Landing in Chattanooga via the Tennessee River. In the Fort Payne area, Rawlinsville and Fort Payne are major facilitators of removal. Not only having large amounts of supplies, there were over 60 small cabins, large amount of horses and soldiers, plus a fort and confiscated buildings were located here. A detachment camp 8 miles below Fort Payne had a role as well. However, the detachment camp had over 1,000 Cherokee people and was there less than a week, and the exact location has not been identified. Fort Likens was in Cherokee County and a short distance from here. Once removal was complete, most forts, stockades, and outbuildings, etc., were dismantled and sold at auction. We know this by access to the quartermaster notes. Identifying sites connected with forced removal does not glorify the actions of the government. Moreover, identifying these sites is important to research how this happened, why it happened, and most importantly, how did removal impact the people of the Cherokee Nation. These are not just numbers and facts and research. These were people's lives and families. Accurate interpretation is vital and happens through research. Another significant reason for researching removal is that after Cherokee removal was complete, pieces of their lives were left behind with farms and homes looted and taken over. Pieces of their lives were left along the trails and camps. Many died while awaiting departure. Many died along the way, and many died once they arrived in Indian Territory. They arrived exhausted, sick, and malnourished. Land surveys and property valuations took place and leave a record of the kind of lives that were savagely interrupted. In the Fort Payne area, there were numerous small, moderate-sized farms owned by Cherokee people. Several large farms with substantial homes and acreage, all were confiscated. I have conducted archaeology on the Fort Payne site with an abundance of dedicated local volunteers. There were some days we had 20 to 30 people come out and help us. It was truly amazing. Out of over 7,000 artifacts recovered, maybe 100 artifacts can be dated to the 1830s. Archaeological survey and excavations took place at the Fort Lycan site by me and volunteers, and with a magnetometer survey from the University of Memphis Earth Sciences Department. The University of Alabama lent me mapping resources for the Fort Lycan's project, and I really appreciate it, Matt. Thank you. The University of Alabama facilitated a ground-penetrating radar survey at a location near the mission school site here in Fort Payne in an attempt to locate the cedar water pipes that began at a nearby spring and fed into the school. A portion of cedar pipes is strongly suggested in a neighbor's yard, and that's due to this GPR survey. And I appreciate it again, Matt, once again. Larry Smith and Camille Bowman worked on that site as well, and I believe Brett did too. The missionary school, the spring and cedar pipes leading to the school, the cabin site, Willstown Cemetery, the spring that is near the bank near here, the Elizabeth Pack home, the Ross home, Manitou Cave, are all connected to the Cherokee Nation and removal, therefore strongly connected to the Trail of Tears. I would also say the Fort Lycan site in Cherokee County is connected to Fort Payne, as it is only 18 miles east from here, and the Fort Payne Stockade and Fort Lycan Stockade exchange supplies, and more than likely Cherokee people and soldiers. An archaeological survey was conducted in 2012 through a Alabama Historical Commission grant. Thank you, Stacy. We identified 6 sites, I think, 4 of which may be associated with removal. And we identified by the 1840 state survey notes where the location of Fort Lycans was located. Currently, it is atop a hill that has experienced years of pine tree cultivation, so therefore there's no evidence of the fort's remains. However, LIDAR could possibly reveal more. Willstown was an important Cherokee location. Virtually all of the old roads in DeKalb County, Cherokee County, Etowah County, Marshall County, and Madison County are intimately connected to removal. According to Lamar Marshall's exhaustive research, numerous existing roads at the time of removal were part of removal, as these roads facilitated Cherokee Nation people to go from point A, their homes, to point B, usually somewhere, a location to await leaving. I relied heavily on professional researchers, amateur researchers, archaeologists, environmentalists, ground-penetrating radar, libraries, quartermaster notes, and authors. Researchers such as Gail King, Larry Smith, Larry Brockman, Larry Benefield, David Duke Carroll, Lamar Marshall, Brett Riggs, Sarah Hill, Jim Lewis, Alan Pressler, and local historian who recently passed, Olivia Baxter Cox, and so many significant others, too numerous to mention here, have contributed to the historical record through hard work and perseverance. Manitou Cave serve many functions that I'm sure we are completely unaware of. And according to Bo Carroll, it is very likely that Manitou Cave was utilized for stickball, pre-game player isolation ceremonies. Although much research has been conducted with a host of environmental discoveries, Manitou Cave holds many secrets that still remain and will likely remain forever. We're certainly aware of Manitou Cave's incredible Cherokee writings on stone cave walls inside this beautiful cave. There's another cave in Georgia that has similar writings and is also associated with stickball ceremonies. I'm just going to mention a few things about Sequoyah because Shannon is going to talk in detail about him. Sequoyah and Manitou Cave are forever intertwined in history. 2001 is the 200th anniversary of the Syllabary creation, and Sequoyah was many things and served his people by being a silversmith, a soldier in the regiment of Cherokee Indians in the War of 1812 against the Red Stick Creeks, and later in life he was a statesman. Having recently read Bo Carroll's master's thesis, Talking Stone, Cherokee Syllabary, Inscriptions in the Dark Zone Cave, I am even more convinced of the intricate, spiritual, significant, and immense importance to the Cherokee people that Manitou Cave represents. Carroll's research dives into the historical aspect of Cherokee spoken language being about 3,500 years old. Sequoyah did an extraordinary thing that has never been accomplished before, and to my knowledge has not happened since. He, illiterate in any written language, literally invented a written language. That's just extraordinary. His daughter assisted him, and it took 12 years. And within a very short amount of time after the syllabary was introduced in 1821 to the Cherokee people, there was much excitement over reading and writing their own language. In short order, a large percent of Cherokee were reading and writing their own language. And there was also a printing press that printed news that could be read by the people. The inscriptions believed to be of great spiritual importance in the cave have not been photographed and are not photographed and are held with deep respect and reverence. In November, there is a documentary, I think it's called Searching for Sequoyah, that airs on PBS. That should be really good. I didn't have time to go through all the people that, during that time period, that are associated with Manitou Cave. John Huss, Spirit the Preacher, he likely owned this property at that time. I've also conducted archaeology here at Manitou Cave. It is not complete because our first weekend that we were here, I had 2 volunteers. The next weekend, COVID showed reared its ugly head, and I haven't been comfortable coming back up until this weekend, staying in a hotel and eating out and that kind of thing. So that's something that we're hoping to complete in the next couple of months when things are better. And another thing of note, some of you may have heard of this. There were portraits that were painted of many Cherokee leaders. John Huss, the one I spoke about that possibly owned this, and John Benge, who led the people out of Fort Payne to Indian Territory. Their pictures were painted and placed in the Smithsonian. But at some point, I don't recall exactly what year, there was a fire in that part of the Smithsonian that destroyed hundreds of paintings. So as far as I know, there's not a record of what John Huss looks like, and I would love to find that. There's a couple of studies, I'm almost through. There are a couple of studies that would likely reveal specific things about this site. The first is a LIDAR survey. The 10 acres surrounding Manitou Cave, the area near the Willstown mission site, possibly the Fort Payne site. Any empty lot in Fort Payne would be a good start for LIDAR testing. In addition to this area, the area of Fort Lycan site and adjoining parcels of land where ground penetrating survey took place in 2013 would, I think, would benefit from this. Second, ethnobotanical studies, which is float samples from inside the cave in selected areas and along the hillside and near the pond, I think would have some interesting results. Even though a great deal of time has passed, these two areas of research would likely add to the growing amount of information about various activities that have taken place. The record's not complete, yet protecting and recognizing Manitou Cave's extraordinary significance is of monumental importance. Thank you, Annette, for asking me to be part of the Board of Directors of Manitou Cave of Alabama. I am honored. And with that, I'd like to thank Annette for doing what very few people could do. Annette Reynolds has accomplished so much more than being director of this property. Annette has gathered a group of people that love history, respect the historical, accurate record, and have the credentials to conduct various surveys at and within Manitou Cave. Once Annette sets a goal, she will go after it. It's truly amazing what she has accomplished. This building here was in tatters, and now it's really nice. There's not very many people that can do that. Thank you, Jerome and Dexter. Thank you for everything you've accomplished here. You're truly amazing. Thank you, Shannon. Your skills are unmatched. Anything that you do is done with professionalism. With friends like Annette and Shannon, and then all. Thank you.